Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. This is Karl Bryan coming at you. I've got a very special treat today. You know, every once in a while you get to interview somebody and you get a little bit excited, maybe a little bit too excited, by the way. I don't want to let my folks down, because let me tell you guys, we have got a true pioneer and an innovator of the internet marketing space, and someone I deeply admire, somebody I've learned an absolute ton from. He's a master trainer to the virtual trainers. He's been in the game a long time, trained many of the legends, including Russell Brunson. He works with Jack Canfield, Harvey McKay. He shared the stage with diverse legends such as Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, Susie Orman, Mikhail Gorbachev, and none other than the Dalai Lama himself. He believes caring is the ultimate competitive advantage, and he's generated over $400 million in sales online for himself and his students. I've heard many refer to him as the Warren Buffett of internet marketing, so nothing serious. I had the distinct privilege of spending a bunch of time with him and his other half, Sandra, who is an absolute fabulous human being on a cruise. And seriously, he's one of the most down-to-earth guys, and he's a true genius. There is no question in my mind. And frankly, he had me laughing nonstop. So I'm looking forward to this. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest, a good buddy and the creator of the Alexism, Mr. Alex Mandossian. Alex, are you there, my man?
I am, and you're one of the few friends I have who has a first and last name that sounds like a first name. So I'm honored to be here. All the names you mentioned, my mother does not know. Carol still is alive and well, and she thinks I do something illegal because I leave town, I come back with a bunch of money after being on stage, and she and everyone else in my family has never made six figures in a single year. So I'm excited to express what has worked for me, the mistakes I've made, and how I've looked bad in public, because that's the key to success. Looking bad in public more often, Karl.
That's it. That's the secret to your success. Is that it? We can almost just finish the interview right there. Thanks so much, Alex. You did great, man.
That's it.
So in all sincerity, so give me the, you've been around a long time, trained literally the legends of our internet marketing space. So tell me, how did you get going? A little bit about your journey. How did you get started online? When did you get started online, etc.?
Well, I am a BG digital marketer. BG stands for before Google, kind of like BC. BC means before Christ, but BG is before God with a little g, which is Google. And I started back in the day where there was AOL, America Online, which did quite well for about 5 years and then just imploded. And I was blessed to be able to teach some of the great digital marketers and business owners today. I can just name drop quite quickly Ryan Dice, Russell Brunson, Vishen Lakhani, Ryan Levesque of the Ask Method. I got Brendan Bouchard on his first big stage for the first time. Now, all these people didn't rely on me for their success. They're exceptional and they're smarter than I am, and they succeeded regardless of any kind of input and coaching I gave them. But the point is, I used to be resentful that I go on every continent except for Antarctica because penguins can't type on a keyboard for some reason. But when they can, I'll go down there. I've been on 6 continents, and I like teaching the little guy and the little gal how to become successful in digital marketing. And I would tell them, I want you to be bigger than me. I want you to be wealthier than me. I want you to get more visibility and exposure and more marketing reach than me. And nothing is more annoying than when it actually happens. And I had a mentor sit me down one time and said, do you know the honor of having a student become a mentor? Do you know what type of honor that is? And, I know shame and guilt are worthless emotions, but I felt those two emotions at that moment. And now I'm proud that my students are my mentors, including yours truly, who I'm speaking to. So, yes, we met on a cruise, but I've already learned much from you, which you don't even realize. So I'm ready to go. And, I may be before Google marketer, but that makes me a dinosaur. I don't have imposter syndrome where I think that what I teach is fake, because it isn't. I teach what I've learned from and the mistakes I've made. My biggest insecurity is I'm a dinosaur. I'm too old, and I'm 55, and I'm still in this business. So if you can deal with that, and hopefully I can just suggest a few ideas and strategies that will be useful to you as a coach and a consultant.
I can tell you, Alex, that humility, I believe, is a superpower, and you have got it in spades. So, and I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you saying that, my man. I truly. But tell me this: over the last 5 years, again, I'm not going to agree with you. You're the dinosaur, but you are the guy that's BG and that taught all the list of greats that you just outlined, and there are many more. Over the last 5 years, what would you say, like, the most impactful change that you've seen online marketing undertake?
Well, the single biggest change is video. When I came on board, there was no audio or video because the bandwidth wasn't there. I initiated an audio process called Audio Generator, which I launched with my two partners, Rick Raditz, who worked for Bill Gates directly in the 1980s, and my good friend Armin Morin. And so we put audio online where websites could actually talk. Now, if there are any millennials listening right now, they'll say, okay, what's the big deal? Well, there was no Facebook, there was no Google, there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there was no WhatsApp, there was nothing like that. So having a website talk was a big deal. And then before YouTube, we had Instant Video Generator, which was software as a service, where we were having videos on emails and web pages. And the single biggest breakthrough in the last 5 years, I believe, because I'm originally a teleseminar guy, I was, I guess, acknowledged as the Larry King of teleseminars. Over 5,000 interviews on teleseminars, where you have a bridge line, people call into it, you mute everyone out except for the person you're interviewing. And that was what we did from 1995 to 2005. And then eventually video came. And I believe the single greatest breakthrough in the last 5 years is video. And specifically, because, she's a good friend of mine. She's the sister of Mark Zuckerberg. That's Randy Zuckerberg. It's a woman. She happens to love my dog, Minnie. So we hit her off at an event. And she's the one who really advanced Facebook Live. And the reason I'm a big fan of Facebook Live, number one, it's free. Number two, you have unlimited bandwidth because it's Facebook. And third, you have the networking effect with the 5-letter word button. That's the most powerful button, the push button influencing button in all of the internet, which is called share. So when you have a Facebook Live and you click share, then you can put your own little personal message above that video, and it shows up on your own Facebook. So you're no longer bit slinging or sending people to someone else's Facebook page. They're coming to you. So if I'm interviewing you or Jack Canfield or Harvey Mackay or the Dalai Lama or Robert Kiyosaki or anyone famous, then all I have to say is share this. And when they share it, they say, hey, Robert Kiyosaki is going to be on my fan page next Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. East Coast time. And so I believe video on Facebook is what's made the difference. I did Google with Google Plus and the whole Google video process. They didn't get it right. I don't believe Periscope is as powerful as Facebook. YouTube is powerful, but not as powerful as Facebook. You have this network that has over 2 billion people. And when you use Facebook Live, I think that's the single greatest breakthrough ever, because it's no cost unless you want to, boost it, with an ad, which I do. And it has unlimited bandwidth. So that's the biggest breakthrough in my opinion.
Love it. Okay, so if you were a business coach listening, how would you use Facebook to your advantage?
Okay, so
how would you do that?
Yeah, every business coach, no matter if you have a book or not, should have some sort of an outline or a curriculum and how you coach. So let's say you have a book. If you don't have a book, don't worry about it. But if you did have a book, take your table of contents. And there, in that table of contents, you have 1 year worth of content with Facebook Live videos. Now, what can you do with a video? Well, with a video, you could do audio because it's already there. With audio, you can take a transcript and you can have written posts, whether it's a blog or articles or whatever it is that you want. So you have the 3 modalities of communication. You have the visual word, the audio word, and the written word. And the spoken word, I believe in more than any other because you can do it during dead time, just like this, what we're doing right now. You don't have to watch because there's nothing to see. But when you're doing video, I recommend that you speak to the ear and not to the eyes. So if you say, hey, look at this, that doesn't mean anything to your tribe. But if you say, in my hand, I'm holding a pencil that is sharpened and another pencil that is not sharpened, and the one that's sharpened has more wisdom because it's been used. Okay, well, that's speaking to the ear because you can read it and it makes sense. You can listen to it and it makes sense, and you can watch it and it makes sense. So the reason I love video is because it's the top of the food chain to repurpose, and you only have to do it once if you do it properly, and you can take the repurposing with audio and the written word. If you're a coach, you have at least 13 weeks of content with any topic if you have 5 ideas you want to share. So let's say that you are coaching business owners how to grow their business, right? So in the first 6 weeks of your editorial calendar, and that's what people do on radio, on television, you have an editorial calendar. You plan it in advance, you pre-record, and then you can post it later. So you're producing and then you're promoting. Biggest mistake coaches make is they produce and promote simultaneously, and they get adrenal fatigue and they quit. No need. Here's a 13-week flight. That's how long TV shows last, 13 weeks. So if it's good enough for the main media stations on television, it's good enough for you. So let's say you had 5 secrets, 5 tips, 5 strategies on how to grow your coaching business. Then week number 1 would be a video on Facebook Live that would be, let's say, 10 minutes. You don't have to make it 30, make it 10, 600 seconds. And that first week, you're covering the what and the why. What is each of the 5 tips and why are they important? You go shallow and wide. So that's all that first week is. And of course, you repurpose that because you've already pre-recorded it, and you repurpose it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube, on blog posts, etc. So week number 1 are the 5 tips, and all you talk about is what and why. It's a 10-minute video on how to build or grow any business as a business coach. I'm just making that up, but are you with me so far, Carl?
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Okay, so week 2 through 6, here's what you do. So tip number 1, secret number 1, these are moving toward ideas, meaning there's something that's aspirational. You want to move towards them. Week number 2, you go narrow and deep on your first secret or tip or strategy. So you cover the what and the why. What's the secret? Why is it important? And then the how takes about 80% of the time. Like, how does it work step by step? So that's week number 2, and you're going narrow and deep for tip or secret number 1. And then week 3, you go narrow and deep on tip or secret number 2, all the way through week 6. So week 1 is going shallow and wide. What and why? What are the 5 tips? You introduce it. And then 2 through 6, you go narrow and deep, what, why, and how for each of these strategies or tips. And they're all moving toward strategies, whatever your topic is. Are you with me so far? And can I continue?
Yeah, buddy, I am so with you, and I love the framework. I just hope everybody's listening. This is just the way you think, and you're pretty famous in the heavyweight circles for exactly this. So absolutely still with you, and continue, please.
Okay, awesome. I mean, I don't want to brag, but this is a $30,000 tip because this is what I teach my $30,000 clients who are all coaches because they don't know what to write. And so if you produce and you focus on the assembly line theory of production, you can do this in 1 week. And then you start promoting for the next 13 weeks. You don't produce, promote. That's like schizophrenia. You don't need to do that. You first produce, then you promote. So all of these are pre-recorded. Alex, can I do Facebook Live pre-recorded? Yes, you can. Is there an application that allows me to do that? Yes, there is. I'll get to that in a moment. I have to keep the loop open so you keep listening to me. All right. So let's move on. So then week 7. Now, week 1 through 6, you did moving toward or aspirational. Week 7 is you do the moving away tips and strategies. So what's the mistakes or the errors or the blunders that people make with business coaching? So you have 5 of them. Now, could you have 6? Of course you could, but let's just go with 5. You have 5 fingers, 5 toes, most of you. So it's easier. So week 7 is going mistakes 1 through 5, shallow and wide. Mistake 1, what and why? What is it and why is it a big mistake? Mistake number 2, 3, 4, 5, that takes about 10 minutes. Now, are you repurposing that? Of course you are throughout the week. You're repurposing it on all the social media channels on video, audio, and written. Have you done all of that work beforehand? Yes, you have. During the production, all you got to do is produce once and then repurpose forever. That's how you make money, right? So insanity is not doing the same thing again and again, expecting the same results. Okay. I mean, that's what Albert Einstein said is insanity. Insanity is doing the same, is doing one thing and not expecting extraordinary results. That's what insanity is for me. And that's called repurposing. Why keep producing content when you can do it like everyone else does once and then repurpose? Okay. Next. I don't know. I mean, I'm Armenian, so we have this Protestant work ethic. I got out of that, and I'm the only guy who's ever made a lot of money in my family, and they enjoy it. My mother will never pay for her nails, toes, or hair, and for the past 15 years, and the people who serve her love me. They know me by my first name and give me birthday presents. All right, so
I love it. Again, I want to make sure everybody's listening. So just the framework that you just laid out, which again, I think that's actually leads me into my next question, because you're really well known. Like you're an efficient guy. At least that's the way I see it. The amount that you get done in the amount of time, it seems like it's so strategic. So I think you teach a concept, important but not urgent. I know a lot of my business coaches, they come to me and they say, look, I battle to get it all done. Again, I think you just gave us a huge secret towards it. But could you talk to me a little bit about that important but not urgent? What does that mean to you, and how would you answer that?
Well, yeah, I will. So if we go through the editorial calendar, week number 7, of course, is what and why of the mistakes, this moving away. By the way, Google will love you because you're talking about the same topic from different angles, like looking at a diamond and turning and looking at different facets. And then weeks 8 through 12 is focusing on each of the mistakes. What, why, and how? What are the mistakes? Week number 13 is simply the frequently asked questions you've gotten in the previous 12 weeks. That's one season. So if it's good enough for spring, autumn, summer, and winter, it's good enough for you. So that's how you structure an editorial calendar by topic. So if you focus on what's not urgent but important, and this comes from a friend of mine who's no longer living, but I know his son quite well, and I'm sure he's listening now somewhere. His name is Dr. Stephen Covey, and he wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he had this book called, which is my favorite book of his. 7 Habits is not my favorite book, but First Things First, is my favorite book. And it's because he talks about the 4 quadrants. So you do things that are urgent and important, which is nonsense because you're not in control. Then you do things that are not urgent and important. That's where I love to be. That's an editorial calendar. That's what I just described. As a coach, that's where you want to be. You do things that are urgent and not important. I can't imagine why you would do that. And you do things that are not urgent and not important, which is a complete waste of time. You want to be in the second quadrant, not urgent and important. And that's where you take complete and total control of your business. Now, as a coach, you know the value of boundaries. If a soccer field, we call it European football, if they didn't have boundaries, then there would be no rules. A volleyball court, a basketball court, a football field, American football, hockey, they don't really have boundaries. Hockey doesn't have boundaries. I went to go watch a fight and a hockey game, broke out. I've heard that before. So, boundaries are key. And so as a coach, you want to maintain standards and boundaries. And one of the ways to do that is to put yourself in the quadrant, because there are 4 of them, of not urgent but important. Alex, I need to talk to you right now. I'm glad you do. And you know the rules of the game. So I can't talk to you right now. Alex, I need to change my appointment. I'd love to change it, but I told you I need a 24-hour heads up, and it's now 2 hours before our appointment, so you're going to lose the appointment. It's in our agreement. Alex, I'm not making the money I thought I would. We've talked about our coaching together, and you're not doing the work. In fact, you haven't showed up to 3 of our sessions together. And I have it all recorded. So how would you like to proceed? See what I'm saying? I mean, I'm kind of embellishing, but when you have boundaries, then people on the other end, family members, your spouse, your ex-spouse, your kids, they can predict you. And when you're predictable, you are trustworthy. Does it take time? It does. And it takes more time if you are set up in a place where there are no boundaries, which many people are.
And it takes discipline as well. Like, this isn't something that magically, if somebody's listening to that and they, again, you're not the person with these boundaries and these rules and you don't feel comfortable directing traffic, or it's something you haven't done successfully with your clients in the past, you're not going to become Alex tomorrow, right? Like, again, slow, steady, the tortoise wins the race in the end, right? So become better at it. Actually, along those lines, I tell coaches that, you've got to have a back end story. You've got a really interesting take on building an origin story. Could you tell me about that? I love it.
Of course. Well, first of all, as a coach, sloppy success is better than perfect mediocrity. So you don't have to do it perfectly. Many coaches are perfectionists, and you will never be happy, right? I sat down in front of John Gray, who's a dear friend of mine. He lives a few miles away from me. He wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and author of many best-selling books. He says, you can't make your spouse, your best friend, your colleague, your partner, you can't make them happy. You can only make them happier. So the fastest and easiest way to have a great company is fire all the unhappy people, because there's no way around it. They're going to bring their poison to the game, and you don't want that. So as far as having an organization that is working and happy, your question that you asked specifically, ask it again so that I pinpoint it.
Yep. So I came to you, a business coach came to you and said, help me build my origin story.
Right. So the origin story never starts with why. Now, Simon Sinek wrote a book called start with why, and he has a great TEDx speech. If you don't know him, you should see that speech. It's a great speech. But you never start with why, with your origin story, because if you start with why, it's like telling the punchline to the joke before you tell the joke. The whole point of the joke is to build anticipation, and then the punchline comes afterwards. So the template for a great origin story, in my opinion, through my experience, is this. You start with when and where, and you start with present tense. So I'll give you an example, when and where. It's October 26th, the year 2000. That's when. There I am on the 5th floor of Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, in Manhattan, in the state of New York, looking at my then wife and my newborn son, who came into the world a year ago. That's where. The next, after when and where, is who. I just gave you the who. My son, me, and my former wife, Amy. And then after when, where, and who, you go with what, and that takes the most time. This is a great origin story because you want people to visualize where you're at. You want them to visualize with you. Visual words are more powerful than non-visual words. And if you have been good with enrolling people in your coaching business, then you know this to be true. It's a matter of injecting pictures in someone else's mind. So next is what. That takes 80%. So it's October 26th, the year 2000. There I am looking at my then wife and Gabriel, my son, my firstborn. He's 1 day old. He's got this little beanie on. He's got a cone head because he came out. And the OBGYN that we work with said it will go back into a round head later on. I was a little bit shocked and concerned, but I figured I didn't have an alien for a son. So, we went from there. And so where was I? I was on the 5th floor of the recovery room of Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. You can see all of that. Okay, so what happened? Now, I had a problem. This is my origin story. This origin story made me almost $17 million in 5 years. So listen carefully, because I told it again and again and again. I was looking at a chair and at a phone. And this is back in the year 2000, so the phones had cords. I know you don't know what a cord is if you're a millennial, but these phones had cords, and it didn't have a dial-up. It had buttons, so it was a modern phone during that day, and a very long cord. And the chair was my bed, because that's where I was going to sleep. Now, because men can't have babies pass through them, I think that's poetic justice from the universe. They get to sleep in that chair. But here's my problem. I didn't know that Gabriel was going to come into the world on that day because he came in 3 weeks too early. This is all about the what happened. And so I had a teleseminar that evening, and it was with financial planners who are not forgiving at all. They're not forgiving. So I figured the show must go on. I looked at the chair, the phone, the chair, the phone. I took the phone, and I brought the phone with the long cord in the only private room in that entire recovery room. It was a private room. I paid extra for it. And that was called the restroom. And for the first time in human history, I put down the toilet seat and I sat on it, and I put the phone on my lap, and I started, and everything went great. I was doing my thing, and for 40 minutes, it was flawless until something terrible happened. This is still the what. So when, where, who, and what. The what takes the most time. This is an origin story. I didn't see this speaker. It was an audio speaker. It was like a woofer. It was, I don't know. It could have been for a rock concert. It was right above the sink in the bathroom. And I heard, visiting hours will end in 20 minutes in the worst Manhattan accent you could possibly think of. Maybe it was a Queens or Brooklyn accent. I don't know. So I put the phone underneath my buttocks, but it didn't work. They heard. Then there was another announcement 10 minutes later. Visiting hours will end in 10 minutes. Then there was another announcement 5 minutes later. Visiting hours will end in 5 minutes. There's a 2-minute warning for visiting hours at Mount Sinai Hospital. Visiting hours will end in 2 minutes. Please leave the hospital. And so I apologize to everyone on that teleseminar. I had over 500 people there. I was selling a product that was $497. And I said, I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional. My son came into the world 3 weeks early. The show had to move on. And so that's why I did it. I'm on the toilet of Mount Sinai Hospital. And that was the person downstairs who I'm going to have a chat with in about 10 minutes. But forgive me, and I hope you come back. And I hung up. Fast forward, and then this is the fifth part, the how. How was it resolved? How did the story resolve? Here it is. So I took my new family to the Upper East Side on 63rd Street. That's when and where. On the 27th of October. And they went to bed because they were exhausted because 17 hours of labor, that's a long time. And I popped open my Outlook because that's what I used at the time. I was on AOL because that's all there was. And ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. I set up my email so that every time I got a sale, it would go ka-ching. Now, some people say cha-ching, but I like ka-ching. That's the dialect I like. I don't know what they say in Canada, but ka-ching is what I prefer. All right. So I almost made $13,000 from the night before. I had people telling me, congratulations, Alex. Good luck, Alex. Alex, I wasn't going to buy, but I feel sorry for you because you had the phone underneath your butt. I mean, I had all kinds of comments, right? And then the final part of the template is why. Why is that relevant to you? So you know when and where it was. You know what happened. You know who was there. You know how it was resolved. I made almost 13K in the year 2000. So why is it relevant and important to the listener, the viewer, the audience? Okay, here it is. If I can make almost 13,000 US dollars from the toilet of Mount Sinai Hospital, can't you do 10% of that from the comfort of your home or office utilizing teleseminars? If your answer is yes, lean forward and listen carefully because I'm going to show you how. Boom. That's an origin story. So when and where, who, what happened, how was it resolved, and why is it relevant and important? I charged $30K just to create, origin stories. I just got a new client just wanting to know how to do an origin story. If you don't have an origin story, then you are not living into your potential because as you're listening, and I'll say this to Karl as well, you're not as good as you think you are. You're better. The pregnant pause is very important there, right? So you're better than you think you are. You need to know an origin story. And that's the template that I work with, Karl. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
No, I love it, but I want to make sure again, guys, that clearly, Alex, guys listening, Alex has a gift for telling stories, right? No doubt you've just heard it, but again, he's got a podcast, very popular one, and I've listened to countless episodes, and I can't tell you how funny that's the way he does a lot of them, and he does it with a framework. Again, he tells you, he starts it with what he's going to tell you, he then tells you, and then he finishes with what he just told you in a way that just makes me, just sit up, as he says, lean in. Anyway, so you should, but I just want to make sure that it's just the framework of what he has. And Alex, please, if I get this wrong, but I believe it was when, where, who, what, how, and then you end with the why.
That's correct.
Did I get that right?
That's correct. And when and where takes less than 10 seconds. Who takes another 10 seconds. What is the majority of it? And then how it was resolved and why it's relevant. You end with why. You don't start with why when it's an origin story. With other situations, when you're selling something, you can start with why. Here's why this will change your life. You can start with why then. But you end with why with your origin story because it builds anticipation, intrigue, and without that, you're not interesting.
Okay, so that's a good segue into my next question. So I believe you call it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the contrast effect. So my question is, okay, so you're a business coach, and I know you teach pricing where it just makes sense. You come in high, and then you go low. So let's assume that the business coach is reasonably new, and $2,000 a month is on the high end, so that would be $24,000 a year. One of the challenges a business coach will have is they get them on the phone or they get them face to face. And if they come in high, it gives, the business owner, let's assume they just can't quite get their head around it. So they say, look, let me think about it. And then the challenge that the business coach will have is to get back in front of them, right? So how would you combat that if you're a business coach where they realize and they agree with you that they got to come in high, but if they do it and they don't close it in the moment, they often don't get a second chance at it. How would you combat? What would you see as a solution to that?
Well, I believe you don't get a second chance with candidates. I don't call them prospects or leads; they're candidates because that's the way to honor them. And first, I begin with an intake. An intake is like an application that identifies the gap that people have, so that you're gathering intelligence, so you have something to talk about for the first 30 minutes. So my people schedule, then take an intake, and then they're told the range of my coaching. So they're told that it's going to be somewhere between $5,000 to $250,000 US. That's the range. And if that's not in their budget, then please cancel the discovery session because there's no reason to move forward. It's not in your range, and you don't have the capability of continuing education and coaching with me. So that's a big way to eliminate people who are not qualified. Pricing is the best reason why for people to have an objection. But why talk to someone for half an hour or 45 minutes when you know they're incapable of paying for your service? So I like to not meet with them instead. And so that's what I do. Now, if they get on with me, and they don't do that anymore, I've taught my people to do it so that it's not me, then the key is to have 3 offers: good, better, and best. It's the Goldilocks principle. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And so what I do, and it's got to be authentic and genuine. So if you do this, it's got to be authentic and genuine. You don't have to have ever sold something at the price level that you're proclaiming, but that's what you're willing to accept. So if I offer $250,000 for a Done With You program for 1 year, like hiring a $500,000 chief marketing officer of a company, then you're going to get this, and this, which includes the $30,000 and the $12,000 gig, right? So it's inclusive, it's cumulative. And then I say, well, that's not available because I don't do that anymore. Have I done it before? I have. Have I taught other people to do it? Yes. If you've never done it, you say, well, that's not something I'm willing to do. However, and then you drop the price. It's the contrast effect. I learned it from Dr. Bob Cialdini. He's a good friend of mine. He wrote the book Influence, and he's written other books as well. Persuasion is his latest book. And so I drop it to $30,000. Now it's really 40, but it's 30 on the basis of what I'm about to express. And then the lowest level is 12. Okay. Now many people are thinking, okay, what do you offer? Who cares what I offer? What difference does it make? It's not the point of what's being offered. What's important is someone who's capable of paying, who's on the call, identifying the gap, and you don't have to be more successful. You don't have to be wealthier than them. There's no coach on earth with musicians or athletes who are better than the people they coach or wealthier than the people they coach. LeBron James has a coach right now. His coach is not as good as LeBron James is at basketball. Okay. So get over the fact that you got to be more successful or wealthier or, have more reach. That's just between your ears, 6 or 7 inches, depending on how big your head is. Right. I don't know in centimeters, but you'll figure it out. Anyway. So, and I don't mean to be, cavalier about it, but that's what it comes down to. Coaching is not about success. Coaching is about empathy. It's about the skill of feeling with them, not for them. At least that's my opinion. So
if I could, the contrast effect, I believe I heard you explain it, is that if I walk into the gym and I pick up a 20-pound weight and then a 5-pound weight, the 5 pounds going to weigh significantly less in comparison. But if I walk into the gym and I just pick up the 5-pound weight, it's going to feel like it weighs significantly more than after the 20 pounds.
Well, you have no comparison. We're creatures of comparison. So I would do 100-pound weight and 5-pound weight, right? There's a huge difference. So I go from 250K to 30K. And if the 30K is not in their budget, then I go to 12. And if that's not in their budget, I say, just listen to my podcast at allsellingaside.com. That's a public service for you. But they indicated that they could pay. They knew that they could pay. They knew it was between 5,000 and over $250,000. They knew that.
Yep.
So I was authentic. So if you've never charged $100,000 for a client, ask yourself, what would you be willing to do for that amount? And then present it and then take it away. I don't have 100K clients anymore. I mean, I've had over 24 $100,000 clients. I don't do those anymore because they're too much work, too much pressure. And no matter what I do in the letter of agreement, they have a convenient memory. They have creative amnesia. So I don't do that anymore. I do 30K for 3 to 6 months, and I give a range because life happens. So if it's more than 6 months, they have to pay more. And then I do 45K program, 45,000 US, between 6 to 9 months. I just got one yesterday. And so the goal is to create this contrast so you don't have one offer, you have three, because human beings are creatures of comparison. You're a price shopper, no matter what. So I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you to lie into your genuine authenticity of what you would be willing to charge if someone was willing to pay, and tell them it's not available. And make sure that whatever that top level is, it includes the middle level and the bottom level. And whatever the bottom level is, that includes the middle level, whatever the bottom level is. So they're not, they're only paying for each level. The top level gets the middle and bottom for free. The middle level gets the bottom level for free. That's called a cumulative and organized funnel that is inclusive and not exclusive. But many people, when they're offering coaching, all three things that they offer, if they have three, are different. And it's insane. I can't believe it. You know, many times I'm paid $30,000 just to give this advice to people because they push back. And I said, well, you can push back all you want. The only thing worse than going in the wrong direction is going in the wrong direction enthusiastically. So be my guest.
Love it. Okay, so but to be clear, so everybody's listening, so you agree, Alex Mandossian agrees, you sit down with a business coaching prospect. In that moment, you do what it takes to get the deal done. That's the bottom line, right? So it's not
at that moment.
It's not because you're the guru's guru of the online guy. So it's not about a funnel and it's not about follow up. It's like get them on the phone, get them face to face, and bloody well close them. End of story. Mic drop. Right?
That's correct. And actually, it is about a funnel. The funnel is you're pre-qualifying and disqualifying them before they even talk to you. So you don't want to talk to anyone who fogs up a mirror. You want to talk to people who are pre-qualified after they have completed a questionnaire application. I call it an intake, like doctors do here in the United States. And then they've gotten an indoctrination video of about 5 minutes of what to expect during our discovery session. And then I tell them what the range of the continuing education is going to be. They're going to get value and they'll be expected to make a decision, which will be yes, shy yes, or no. What's the shy yes? This is what made me famous in my little world. My mother still doesn't know what I do, but I mean, in my little world, this is what made me famous. So let's say they have a $30,000 decision, which may be a lot to some people listening, or maybe not a lot. Maybe you're rolling your eyes if you do 3 or 4 or 5 times that. But I have a 30K program. It's called Clear Path Coaching. And then I tell them, look, you can make a decision to pay for the 30K and there's financing in 3 months, or you can do a deposit, which is kind of like real estate where you're making a deposit or a confirmation to buy the property later on, but you're controlling that property, but you're making a commitment today. And I make that commitment of $500. And I tell them it is non-refundable after 17 days. Within 17 days, if you say yes, then we'll add it to your continuing education. So you'll pay $29,500. And why 17? It's a great number. I don't know. It's a prime number. I just used that. and then it's good for 6 months. So many times I'll get $500 deposits, and that is basically giving them control to be able to say yes to coaching. It's a shy yes. They have 6 months to make a decision. If they make the decision within 17 days, they apply it towards their tuition. After 17 days, then it's an addition to their tuition. Here's the best part, Carl. If you have a sales team, which I do, and you eventually will get there, I pay my salesperson $150 for that 45-minute consultation. I keep $350 of it. That's like going to heaven without the inconvenience of dying. I didn't get the sale, and I'm still paying my salesperson something, and I have a commitment from my candidate. And typically 73 to 74%, almost 75% of the people move forward and don't forego that deposit. You know, they get, it's kind of like in stocks and bonds and in real estate, it's an option to buy the property. In this case, it's an option to buy the coaching. And I recommend it to any coach listening right now.
Love it. Okay, well, so marketing on the internet, right? So let's say a business coach is listening and they're like, you know the story, right? They're looking at LinkedIn, looking at Instagram, looking at Facebook. How would you advise them on how to market themselves on the internet? I'm pretty sure you gave us a lot of magic here towards the beginning, but how would you answer that question?
Well, if you're a business coach, I would focus on LinkedIn. I would learn LinkedIn backwards and forwards, because more than Facebook, more than Twitter, more than YouTube, LinkedIn will be your source if you learn it. And there are many applications that you can use to get people to at least get a hold of your content. Now, LinkedIn is not the thing. Your editorial calendar and your content is the thing. So focus on a topic, have 5 tips, secrets, strategies moving toward, and that's 6 weeks worth of content. Week number 1 are all 5 tips where you say what and why. And then weeks 2 through 6 are what, why, and how of those moving toward tips. And then week 7, you want to focus on moving away the mistakes, blunders, or errors of the same topic. And then you go shallow and wide. What and why are those mistakes? Why are they important to avoid? And what are they? And then what, why, how, each one step by step, 10 minutes, a video with the transcription underneath it on LinkedIn. And then week number 13, because 5 tips will get you 6 weeks of content, tip number 13 will be frequently asked questions that you get. So my recommendation is to come up with a topic, come up with 5 tips, 5 errors, record and produce that. It'll take you less than a week, and then start dripping it on LinkedIn and watch the way you get connection requests. And it's the best place to get coaching clients. It's better than Facebook. It's better than Twitter. It's better than YouTube. People are business people on LinkedIn. Facebook is a party. Twitter is a gossip chat platform. And YouTube is basically controversy and like conspiracy videos. That's it. I mean, so I like LinkedIn personally. And so if you're going to coach and you want to build your social media presence, do it on LinkedIn. Learn whatever there is to learn from there.
Yep. No doubt you'd agree. Something I've said a lot, but just like these platforms are all free right now. Connections are free, basically building the database, and it does take some work, and you got to put yourself out there a little bit. But if they're not using, and you reckon I agree, like LinkedIn is where a business coach will probably get the most jam, or will get the most jam, but they're crazy. Like they're going to look, if they don't take advantage of it now, do you agree with me that in 5 years they'll look back and be kicking themselves saying, geez, why didn't I?
Well, let's just say I disagreed with you, right? So let's look at the facts. Is there a business coach anyone listening right now looks up to? It could be you, Carl. It could be someone else. If the answer is yes, are they on social media? Forget LinkedIn for now. That's a primary source, but you can still be repurposing on the other social media platforms. Are they on social media? The answer is typically yes. Have they written a book? The answer is yes. Where did the book come from? Oh, from content. How did the content get organized? Through an editorial calendar. after like 6 months or 9 months, you got a book. 1 year, you got a book. So, money can't buy happiness, but it makes misery a lot easier to deal with. That's what I know. And so, bottom line is, it's nice to charge more and to have more exposure. You don't have to be on social media, but if you're not, 5 years from now, you will be irrelevant as much as you are right now, because if people don't know your name, you're not relevant. Sorry. You may think you're a legend in your own mind, but if people don't know you, if you're not, people don't know me. They don't know me like public figures and celebrities. But in my little world, with my 700,000 plus students, they know me. Okay. Well, how did I start?
Is that all, Alex? The 700,000?
Well, and growing. But look, I'm older than you are. It's 1995. So, I had a lot of time. But listen, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So why suffer and not have exposure? Just go through the pain of just creating content and know that you're worthy of devotion with your content. And bottom line is, you'll find out if what you're saying is meaningful or not. That's the best part of social media. If you're ignored, you're irrelevant. If people comment, then you got something.
Love it. Here's a question. So the business coach listening, because one of the most important things, I think that, my space, pure business coaches, they tend to be a little bit obsessed, and then the marketing towards them seems to be a little bit obsessed with, lead generation. And what I like to talk about is, hey, go get your clients some results, and then they're not going to be leaving you, and you can make a couple $100,000 a year. But I want to ask that same question. The brick and mortar, let's just say the restaurant, would you undertake pretty much the same process for them for the 13 weeks of video, or what would you do with them?
I would do the exact same thing. Let me tell you something, and this is going to sound controversial, and it doesn't matter if you feel it is. It's a projection, and you are what you complain about. All right. So I'm coaching without solicitation. Bottom line is this: the purpose of a business is not to produce profit. The purpose of a business is to create case studies. When you have case studies, whether they're successful or not, you produce profit. The single most powerful tool you have are stories of people who have come through you. So if the purpose of your coaching business is to create a case study, you look at your business differently. If the purpose is to produce profit, you look at it through another lens. So consider that distinction and see how that suits you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I like the way you think, Alex, my man. Okay,
you need to talk to Carol, my mother, okay? Because she's honestly.
Yeah, no, we'll get her on afterwards, man. Let me talk.
Okay, good. I want a testimonial so she knows, okay?
Yeah, you got it, man. Don't worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to paint the bus, Alex Mandossian style. It's going to be driving around New York City. In other words, it's going to get millions of eyeballs. What am I going to put on the side of the bus that's going to represent Alex Mandossian and his message to the world?
That's easy. It's my 3-word tombstone epitaph, which is, he celebrated often. And celebration to me is so important. We have too many goals, Carl. We have too many goals. We don't have enough celebrations. I'd rather have fewer goals and the opportunity to celebrate more often. When I turn my annual income into a monthly income, I remember Bob Proctor sat me down and said, Alex, you got to turn your annual income into a monthly income. I said, well, Bob, how am I going to do that? That doesn't matter. Okay. So I've interviewed him over 40 times, and we're good friends. And I actually mentored his grandson, and I know his son quite well. So what I did in 2001 is I made $63,700 that year. And it was a drop from $300,000. I moved from New York City, where I was living, and I moved to San Francisco Bay Area, where I live today, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. You probably have seen it if you're in Canada. All right. So, that's an 80% drop. And were we spending like we were making 300K? Yes, we were. So I was terrified, but we didn't have free babysitting on the East Coast. And so we came here, and I was married, and my in-laws are here in Northern California. All right. So Gabriel was born, and 2 years later, Brianna was born, my daughter. And that's it. I stopped at man-on-man defense. I don't play zone defense. Sorry. So they're now in their late teens. But what I learned was that you can turn an annual income into a monthly income if you declare your intention publicly, not affirm it privately, but declare it. So what Bob Proctor taught me is, okay, I put 36 columns on my wall, and I put $63,700, 63,700, 36 times. And then starting in 2002, I wrote how much I made each month. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all the way to December. Then it started all over again, 36 months. By November, 23 months later, my annual income had turned into my monthly income. It dropped in December, but who cares? Because I went from like 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 a month to 63,700 a month. And it was all there. It was public. So I believe in declaring an intention, not affirming it. Affirmations are great, but they're private. By declaring it, people look and they go, what is that? Oh, that's my goal. 63,700 a year? No, a month. Oh, Alex, you're such a dreamer. You know what? You're right. I am. And the only difference between me and you is my dreams come true. Duh. Boom. Okay. So eventually I made $1 million in a day. A friend of mine made it in August of 2006. I did it in December 2006. So he got all the accolades. His name is John Reese. But I did it just a few months later, but no one cared because first is best. And then I did it. I did $1 million in an hour. And that was 2007. I did it in 28 minutes with my two partners. Well, I didn't get it all, but it was Armin Moore and Rick Raditz. And it was for I guess the first generation of what ClickFunnels and, Smart Pages and all the type of apps that you have today was called Marketing Makeover Generator. And we did 1.2 million in 28 minutes. I could not believe it. I didn't tell anyone because I knew that they would be putting their hands out for free handout. But I'm just proud of it. So I went from, dropping 80% from 300K on Madison Avenue to 63,700 to turning it into an annual income, monthly income, daily income, and then hourly. Not every hour, not every day, obviously, but enough to be notable. And like I said, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's not just about the money. It's creating case studies, and I have over 5,000 of them. That's what I do when I get a new client or a new student. I want to create a case study, and it changes your perspective. It's not about you delivering and fulfilling anymore. It's about you creating a success story for another soul on earth.
Which, again, just so everybody's listening, so you guys are hearing the power of this, like what I described earlier, it's not about lead generation, right? Get your coaching client, and sure, they're going to pay you, and you want to be paid handsomely. Everybody gets that. But make your undertaking to create a case study. And in many cases, I think, Alex, you probably agree with me, they're going to be underpaid initially. If you're a new coach and you're just getting going, you're going to struggle to sit down and demand, $5,000 a month, 60 grand a year. You'll struggle to charge $3,000 a month, 36 grand a year, right? You might have to do it for $1,000 a year. But those case studies that Alex is talking about, and the experience and the runs on the board, and most importantly, the wisdom that comes with actually doing it, not listening to Alex or reading a book, but actually doing it. This is where the magic lies, and this is where you put yourself as a business coach. You'll never have to worry about a paycheck ever again.
And you'll get a pay raise month after month after month. You get a pay raise every month. That's the beauty of this.
And it becomes easier, right? Because it's easier. You know what I mean? Like that's again the magic. So as you get older, you become worth more. Your network becomes stronger. It becomes bigger. The results and the referrals, like everything becomes easier, right? But it's no different than your bank account. The way that it compounds over long periods of time, right? Their wisdom and experience and whatnot also compounds. And I always say, Warren Buffett is the highest paid business consultant in the world.
Yes.
Right? And by the way, at the age of 60, he was kind of like I don't want to say he was a nobody. He was a very, very rich man, but only in his own little circles. He wouldn't have been being referenced in a call something like this. And now at 88, he runs around signing autographs, right? He basically he provides time and money with businesses that he can implement, right? So just want to make sure my coaches, so I just love that, Alex, and frankly, I'm going to borrow it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
I mean,
your
I think you're
job is
spot
to
on.
create case studies. God, that's powerful.
He has two rules for money. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1.
I love it. I love it. Well, tell me, so as a guy who made, which I didn't know this, by the way, it's something new I learned, you did 1.2 million in, what was it, 28 minutes?
Yes.
So what's the number one thing over your career, multiple decades, by the way, online? What would you say? If I pressed you for the number one lesson that you've learned, what would you give me?
The number one lesson I've learned is that to have a messed up and screwed up business requires a computer. To royally screw things up requires a human being on a computer. So the team that you hire, the vendors that you hire, the suppliers you hire, everyone who is supporting you, they're more important than any client you could ever get.
I love it. And I concur and high five, man. Love it. Love it. So, well, tell me, so your specialty is helping coaches that don't like to sell how to sell, and you do it again. And I want you guys to listen to it. You should listen to this 2 or 3 times, is my opinion. I'll be most certainly going back and listening to it a couple times to learn some, make sure I'm pulling as much of the magic. Remember, I don't like to train. I like to train to improve, and I think that's that can be a paradigm shift. So, Alex, tell us about seeding through storytelling is the new selling. Talk to us about that. What is it?
Well, I didn't want to write a book as my legacy. I wanted to use audio because it's dead time learning. You can listen to audio when you're walking a dog, working out, in traffic. So my podcast is a public service. It's free. allsellingaside.com. If you have an Android, it's on Stitcher or Google Play. If you have an iPhone, it's on iTunes, just All Selling Aside. And seeding through storytelling is what I've been doing the whole time here. I've been telling stories, but I've been planting seeds to see which of those seeds take root. Because I believe I can't sell. I believe that you're only in the position to buy what I'm saying. So you may be offended or you may be embracing what I'm saying. I don't know where you're at as you're listening. But what I do know is if I sell, I'm going to offend a lot more people and get fewer people influenced. If I seed, and let you take root as you provide sunlight and water to let those seeds germinate, then that is a stick strategy to make that sale stick. So I don't believe that people love to be sold, but I do believe that they love to buy. And Jeffrey Gitomer taught me that. He's one of my mentors. And that's the way this podcast is set up through stories. So allsellingaside.com, you can go there and take a look at the notes. It's free. You don't have to opt in. I won't be, following you with pixels and being like a troll. You can just enjoy 25 years of knowledge into 25 minutes week after week.
And I can tell you, Alex, I have listened to countless episodes, and to say it's good. And the thing, Alex, I don't know, like the one thing that you do is like I don't know if this is the right wording, but you practice what you preach. We'd all you know what I mean? That goes without saying, but like the way you do, you drop little bombs, and I have found it. Obviously, I think I know this stuff a little better than the average bear. And I'm just listening to a few of the episodes, and I can just see those seeds being dropped, and I'm jealous as heck. And just, it's everybody should be listening, and not only listening to what he's saying, but I want you to watch the process that he follows, because Alex, you truly are a superstar. Speaking of being a superstar, though, would you just really honestly and sincerely say that because I believe that you're one of the best sales people I've ever met. Do you really believe that you are not a good salesperson? Like it's a process that you follow?
I believe I get sales. I know many people who are far better than I am, who are both students and teachers of mine. And I'm constantly learning. But sales is about influence. So sometimes people look at sales as a dirty word. I look at it as an opportunity. Because if I have something that someone else I know needs, it is my duty The Sanskrit term is dharma, which means to hold up. It's my dharma to make sure that they understand it. And the greatest challenge that people have is they don't communicate clearly. So that's what I think I'm best at, is I can teach others how to communicate clearly through their origin story, and not to sell directly, but to flank them, kind of like in warfare, but this is warfare of words, where they're just seeding through storytelling, and then the other person is getting sold. So I think that I'm best at that. But as far as being on stage and getting people to run to the back table, I'm probably in the top 5 percentile. There are people far better than I am. As far as having people stick with the sale and not ask for refunds, I'm in the top 1/2 percentile for that. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, no, and a lot of the guys listening, like I say, because that's one of the challenges, right? Like I've got a saying that if you can coach, you can't sell, and if you can sell, you can't coach, right?
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too far off. So again, I think a lot of our folks listening are going to be very comforted with that. There's a very legitimate there's a process that you clearly follow. I have seen it right there, like listen to it. And it is fabulous. So, well, look, tell me, a lot of these folks want to hear more about Alex, and tell me where to send them in order to find out
simple.
More and follow you and learn your more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the CEO and founder of marketingonline.com, but that'll cost you money if you go there. So I would recommend you go to allsellingaside.com and just subscribe, review, rate the podcast, enjoy it. There's a lot of episodes there, nearly 100. And it's a public service, and it's my honor and dharma to do that for you. So hopefully our paths will cross again. Karl, thank you so much for this opportunity. I never take it for granted, regardless of being a dinosaur and being a BG digital marketer.
Humility is your superpower, dude. You are a legend, man. I so appreciate this. And like I said, to say I've been a fan for a long time is an understatement on steroids. So let me tell you, this was all my honor, dude, and I appreciate it so much. And so on behalf of everybody listening, again, guys, I'm going to recommend that you go back and listen to this at least a couple of times, if not more, and I most certainly will. So on behalf of everybody listening, Alex, thank you so much. You're a treasure, brother.
Thank you, Karl.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.